Hare Krishna. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhadajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhadajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Chamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad, Paramahansa Buddhika-acharya, Ashtoto, to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa Buddhika-acharya, Ashtoto, to the Sri Srimad Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavini ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. Glorious appearance day of Sri Radha-kunda ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. So before we read the Bhagavatam, we are going to read the glorious story of how Radha-kunda appeared. And I looked this up, so it should be right here. Okay. So on the 17th day of October 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from the account from the Puranas quoted by Vishwanath Chakrabarti in his commentary to Srimad Bhagavatam 10:36-16, recounting the appearance of Sri Radha-kunda. And I'll just read this. This is from the purport. We included in the purport. There are 20 verses. I'll give one Sanskrit verse and then just read all the English. From the Puranas, we're not sure which one, it's probably Padma Purana. Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur has quoted 20 verses describing a joking conversation between Radha and Krishna that took place after Krishna had killed the demon Arishta. What form was he in, Dr. Tyler?
No, we just studied this, the making of Radha-kunda.
I know. Was he a bird? Was he a snake?
Yeah.
No, he wasn't a snake. He was a bull. Yeah, that's the problem. You'll see that became an issue. Big bull, huge bull. This conversation, so kindly quoted by the Acharya, describes the origin of Radha-kunda and Syama-kunda. Radha's and Krishna's bathing ponds. The verses are as follows. This could be the first taste of the Sanskrit. Masman prasada vishabardhana hanta mugdha goro soroya mayi Krishna tarapya gangao Vritroyata dvijahirhast ayanishkriti kim shudjen bhavang tribhuvanas tititirtha kritrat. The innocent young gopis said, "Ah, Krishna, don't touch us now, O killer of a bull. Alas, even though Arishta was a terrible demon, still he was a male cow. So you will have to undergo atonement, just as Lord Indra did after killing Vritrasura. But how can you purify yourself without going to the trouble of visiting every single holy place in the three worlds?" Okay, time out as I make the type a little larger so I can see it better. Okay. Krishna replied, "Why should I have to wander throughout the entire universe? I will at once bring all the countless pilgrimage places here and take my bath in them. Just watch." With this, Lord Mukunda struck his heel on the ground. Then he said, "This is the water of the Bhagavati river coming from the Patala region. And now, O holy places, all of you please come here." When the Supreme Lord had spoken these words, all the holy places, means all the holy rivers, went there and appeared before him. Krishna then addressed the gopis as follows. "See all the holy places." But the gopis replied, "We don't see them as you describe." Then those best of the holy places, joining their palms in supplication, spoke up, "I am the salt ocean. I am the ocean of milk. I am the Amara Dirghika. I am the river Shona. I am the river Sindhu. I am the Tamraparni. I am the holy place Pushkar. I am the river Saraswati. And we are the Godavari, the Yamuna, the Reva rivers, and the confluence of rivers at Prayag. Just see our waters." After purifying himself by bathing, Lord Hari became quite arrogant and said, "I have produced a pond containing all the various holy places." That's Syama-kunda. "Whereas you gopis must never have executed any religious duties on this earth for the pleasure of Lord Brahma." Then Srimati Radharani addressed her girlfriends as follows. "I must create an even more beautiful pond, so go to work." Having heard these words, the gopis, and there's thousands of them, saw that Arishtasura's hooves had dug a shallow ditch just west of Sri Krishna's pond. This is where Radha-kunda is. At that nearby spot, all the gopis began digging lumps of soft mud with their hands, and in this way a divine pond manifested in the short span of an hour. Krishna was astonished to see the lake they produced. Of course, it wasn't a lake yet. It was just a big lake bed. He said, "Go ahead, lotus-eyed one. You and your companion should fill this pond with the water from mine." But Radha replied, "No, no, no, no. This is impossible, since the water of your pond is contaminated by your terrible sin of killing a cow." So here's how she says, no, 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 no. "Radha tada nanananeti jagari yasmat vat kunda nida murugo vadapata kakta." Radha continued, "I will have my countless gopi companions bring the pure water of the Manasa Ganga here in billions of pots. In this way I'll fill this lake with my own water and thus make its renown unequaled in the entire world." Lord Krishna then gestured to a heavenly personality who was an intimate associate of all the holy places. Suddenly that person rose up out of Krishna's pond, Syama-kunda, and bowed down to the daughter of Sri Vrishabhanu, Radharani. Then, with palms joined and tears pouring from his eyes, he began praying to her in devotion. "O goddess, even Lord Brahma himself, the knower of all scriptures, can't understand your glories, nor can Shiva or Lakshmi. Only Krishna, the supreme goal of all human endeavor, can understand them, and thus he is eager to personally wash away your perspiration when you're fatigued. He is always anointing your lotus feet with nectarian charu and yabaka and decorating them with ankle bells, and he rejoices and feels most fortunate simply by satisfying the tips of the toes of your lotus feet. On his order, we have immediately come here to live in this most excellent pond, which he created by one stroke of his heel. But only if you now feel satisfied with us and bestow upon us your merciful glance will the tree of our desire bear fruit." Hearing this moving prayer, spoken by the representative of the full assembly of holy places, Sri Radha was pleased and said, "So, kindly tell me your desire." They then told her plainly, "Our lives would be successful if we could come to your pond. That is the benediction we desire." Glancing at her beloved from the corners of her eyes, the daughter of Vrishabhanu replied with a smile, "Please come." Her gopi companions all agreed with her decision and became immersed in the ocean of happiness. Indeed, the beauty of all creatures, both mobile and stationary, was enhanced. Thus, gaining the grace of Srimati Radharani, the holy rivers and lakes in Sri Krishna-kunda forcibly broke through its boundary walls and swiftly filled Radha-kunda with their waters. Lord Hari then said, "My dear Radha, may this pond of yours become even more world-renowned than mine," and it has. "I will always come here to bathe and to enjoy my water pastimes. Indeed, this lake is as dear to me as you are." Radha replied, "And I will come to bathe in your pond as well, even though you may kill hundreds of Arishta demons here. In the future, anyone who has intense devotion for this lake," she's talking about Syama-kunda, "which is on the spot where you chastised Arishtasura, and who bathes or resides here, is sure to become very dear to me." That night, Lord Krishna initiated a rasa dance at Radha-kunda, generating a torrent of the greatest mood of splendorous pleasure. Sri Krishna resembled a cloud, and Srimati Radharani a brilliant flash of lightning, filling the sky with abundant beauty. In this way, their divine glories permeated the expanses of the three worlds. Shri Shri Radha-kunda ki jai. And now we'll proceed with our study of Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th Canto, Chapter 1. All right. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from the 6th Canto, Prescribed Duties for Mankind, Chapter 1, The History of the Life of a Jamil, text number 42. Suryo, Agni, Kam, Marud, Devaha, Somaha, Sanjahani, Dishaha, Kam, Ku, Swayam, Dharma iti, Yete, Dayasya, Sakshinaha, Suryogni Kang Marudeva, Soma Sanjahani Dishaha, Kam Ku Swayam Dharma iti, Yete Dayasya Sakshinaha, Suryogni Kang Marudeva, Somak Sanjahani Dishaha, Kang Ku Swayam Dharma iti, Yete Dahyasya Sakshinaha, Suryogni Kang Marudeva, Somak Sanjahani Dishaha, Kam Kuk Swayam Dharma iti, Yete Dahyasya Sakshinaha. Suryogni Kang Marudeva, Somak Sanjahani Dishaha, Kam Ku Swayam Dharma iti, Yete Dahyasya Sakshinaha, Suryogni Kang Marudeva, Somak Sanjahani Dishaha, Dharma iti, Yete Dahyasya Sakshinaha, Suryogni Kang Marudeva, Somak Sanjahani Dishaha, Kam Kuk Swayam Dharma iti, Yete Dahyasya Sakshinaha. Govardhan. Suryogni Kang Marudeva, Somak Sanjahani Dishaha, Kam Kuk Swayam Dharma iti, Hridayasya sakshinaha. Go ahead. Suryagni kang maruddeva Somak sandhyahani dishaha Kanghuk swayam dharma iti Hridayasya sakshinaha. Suryaha, the sun god. Agnihi, the fire. And it's understood these are all the gods of these things. Kam, the sky. Marut, the air. Devaha, the demigods. Somaha, the moon. Sandhya, evening. Ahani, the day and night. Dishaha, the directions. Kam, the water. Kuh, the land. Swayam, personally. Dharmaha, Yamaraj, or the Supersoul. Yeah, it's two alternatives. Iti, thus. He, indeed. Ete, all of these. Dayasya, of a living entity embodied in the material elements. Sakshinaha, witnesses. Translation. So this is the Yamadutas explaining what they understand the rules of Dharma are. The sun, fire, sky, air, demigods, moon, evening, day, night, directions, water, land, and the Supersoul himself all witness the activities of the living entity. Please repeat. The sun, fire, sky, air, demigods, moon, evening, day, night, directions, water, land, and the Supersoul himself all witness the activities of the living entity. Purport. The members of some religious sects, especially Christians, do not believe in the reactions of karma. We once had a discussion with a learned Christian professor who argued that although people are generally punished after the witnesses of their misdeeds are examined, where are the witnesses responsible for one suffering the reactions of past karma? So this was during Prabhupada's school days. Remember that? Yeah. To such a person, the answer by the Yamadutas is given here. A conditioned soul thinks that he is working stealthily and that no one can see his sinful activities. But we can understand... Tapas, are you there? Someone on Zoom. Please mute yourself. Okay, we'll continue. A conditioned soul thinks that he is working stealthily and that no one can see his sinful activities, but we can understand from the Shastras that there are many witnesses, including the sun, fire, sky, air, moon, demigods, evening, day, night, directions, water, land, and the Supersoul himself, who sits with the individual soul within his heart. Where is the dearth? That's lack. Where is the dearth of witnesses? The witnesses and the Supreme Lord both exist, and therefore so many living entities are elevated to higher planetary systems or degraded to lower planetary systems, including the hellish planets. There are no discrepancies, for everything is arranged perfectly by the management of the Supreme God. Swabhaviki Jnana Bala Kriyacha. The witnesses mentioned in this verse are also mentioned in other Vedic literatures. And Prabhupada quotes a verse from the Upanishads. Aditya Chandrav Anilo Nalascha Dhyar Bhumar Apo Vidiyam Yamascha Ahascha Ratris Cha Ube Cha Sandhye Dharmo Pijana Ditanasya Vrittam. So there's no translation here, but when we get to this in our review of the Bhagavatam, we may add one. Because oh no, well, it's not part of the marathon. But anyway. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Salakaya Chakshu Unmadatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Shri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So the Yamadutas are continuing to explain their understanding of how the universal law works. And here they're explaining that you can't get away with anything. I mean, it's such an extensive list, and even if it wasn't, if it was just a super soul, you would still be completely under the witness. But it's interesting here, the sun, the fire, sky, air, demigods, the idea is that if you understand this, you'll be more reluctant to commit sin. Because as Prabhupada explains, and it's obviously true, that a robber or a pickpocket or a burglar or something, he doesn't want to be seen doing his nefarious business. Right? The burglars wait until it's vacant, or they tiptoe in, or whatever. Because if there's a witness, then they'll be liable to be punished and hauled before, identified as the criminal like that. So, in terms of the universal law, it's very important that the witnesses are seeing everything, so that there's no discrepancy. I mean, both good and bad. There's also pious things that you can do which will mitigate your punishment, which will maybe even get you to heaven. That's also important. But the presence of witnesses is all important, and if you can't understand them, if you can't, who thinks that the sun is watching them, in modern Western, culture? No, the sun's just up there. It's completely inanimate, and they don't believe in the super soul. So everyone is trying to get away with something, pretty much, even if it's not some gross crime, right? First of all, the whole moral structure that's so very, in such detail defined in books like the Manu Samhita and the Bhagavatam, and even in the Bible, people feel that, well, yeah, that's there, but no one, I'm in my own room here. I'm smoking dope or doing whatever I'm doing, and no one's seeing me. I understand that, it might get me in trouble with my boss if they saw, but I'm at home. There's no problem. I can do whatever I want. But you can't do whatever you want, and if you go out of bounds, if you don't know the law, you're bound to violate it. This is the first problem, is that people don't even know that they're committing a sin, that they're going to be punished for it. That's the whole point. The more in the mode of ignorance you sink, the more you feel, oh, I'm independent to do whatever I want within the powers that I have in order to enjoy. And I want to enjoy right away. I don't want to put it off, and they don't believe in hell. They don't believe in God. This is a demoniac mentality. It's worthwhile reviewing the 16th chapter every now and then, so you get it down exactly what Krishna explains as what the demons are. Asatyam apatishtam te jagadahu anishwaram aparaspara kimanitkama hoitakam. This is one of the first verses describing the demons. There's no ultimate truth. There's no foundation of existence. They declare, Jagadahu, this is the demons, the atheists, they declare there's no God in control. It's not that they think, well, maybe there's a God. It's not agnosticism. That atheism is firm conviction and faith that there's no God. Jagadahu anishwaram. You can understand what that means. They say there's no God in control of this universe. And how did everything come about? Just by chance. Over millions and trillions and billions of years, the mixing of the chemicals came, and then the first one-cell organism came about, or the rudimentary pre-organic chemicals came about, just by chance. And then after another billion years or something, the sun is striking them, and they just got into the right combination, and there was the first one-celled organism. This is the madness, So, if that is the case, then there is no morality. There's no laws. I mean, we understand there's natural laws. We understand that if you jump off a cliff, you're going to break yourself and probably die. So we're very careful. But we're getting control of nature. And now we got, there's a little bit too much, carbon dioxide, but we got it under control. We're going to, They have nothing under control. The problem is that when the criterion for progress is material enjoyment, even if it may be in the mode of goodness, but it's not. It's mostly mode of passion and ignorance. Then there is simply the growing, admittedly, knowledge, scientific knowledge of how to exploit nature to create an enjoyable atmosphere, whatever it may be. But that's suicide. It's clearly true if everybody in the world was living like the average middle-class American lives, that the earth couldn't sustain it. I mean, that's clear now, But everyone wants to. And so even the people who couldn't before, just like in India, they've now surpassed the UK in gross national product. Yeah, the UK is in trouble. They're going down now. Oh, great, gross, and it's properly named gross national product. What could be more gross, I mean, they had this whole thing where they were going to use, adopt the American system, the Western system of agribusiness, aggregate all these farms. There's millions, there's still the majority of people in India, vast majority, are on the farms. So basically they would all be coming to the cities, Delhi and Mumbai and Calcutta, because their land would be bought out to make it more efficient, adopt the Western system. So there was a huge strikes, right? I mean, they were blocking, and finally they had to give it up, isn't it? At least they're giving up for now, But it's happening in other parts of the economy where they're streamlining, adopting Western systems. But in India and other places where where you have a great majority of people who are basically living a very simple life, trying to just exist, then this is disaster. To try to establish big factories and everything, and it's ugra karma, and it becomes even more ugra when they do it, because I literally bought a straight on through the internet that gas mask for going to India. I have delicate lungs. A little bit, because I grew up in New York. I spent a lot of time in Philadelphia, which is right next to New Jersey, where all the fumes are coming in from the refineries, And so I have the tendency to get chronic bronchitis and stuff like that. So by Krishna's grace, for the last 40 years or so, I've lived on the beach. Miami Beach and Pacific Beach, and you get the nice breezes coming in, and so the air is relatively clean, you don't get all those pollutants, so I've been fortunate. But when I went to India the last time, this is over 20 years ago now, I think, I literally couldn't, this was Vrindavan. I was staying inside most of the time, because it becomes so polluted, not just the local traffic, buses and cars, and, it's not a very rural city like it was when Prabhupada first brought the devotees there. But they're downwind from Delhi, 90 miles. And Delhi is just one of the most polluted cities in the world. Sometimes people can't go outside, It's just, and so this is ugra karma. This is another instance of that verse that I often quote from Prahlad Maharaj's prayers. He says, Yasmat priya priya viyoga suyoga janma shokagnana sakala yona sadahyamana dukkha shadam tadabi dukkha madadhyaham bhumam mamami vadameta vadasi yoga. So he says, my dear Lord, I and all living entities have been burning in a fire of lamentation caused by two inevitable facts of material life. Yasmat priya priya viyoga. The things that are dear to you, your health, your family, your child, your money, whatever it may be over a lifetime, are eventually ripped away from you. Or maybe you still have them, but you can't enjoy them anymore as you get older. That's even more painful. So that's one source. And everybody goes through it, throughout your life. Things that, my dog, I love my dog. They're gone. As a child, pets die. So that's material life. And on the other side, the things that you abhor, the things that are really horrible, they're forced upon you. They just, war, nuclear war may come, the pandemic. This was something that everyone in the world experienced, the threat of it at least, right? Some places like New Zealand, they had it together, and hardly anyone got it, hardly anyone died anyway. But just the fact that it was happening all over the world and you couldn't see it, and it was, a threat, the people who you used to talk to, you can't talk anymore, and all this. But it really had a big impact on mental health all over the world. And but we live it all the time. I mean, this is Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Doshana Darshanam. We're meant to see that this material world is not our home. There's inevitable miseries of birth, old age, disease, and death. You see, and then there's the threefold miseries that caused by the demigods, and you're caused by your own body, by other people. And so what's the bright spot? Well, the bright spot, I mean, without any reference to God, Krishna consciousness, is that there's some sense gratification here. And in fact, the matter is, if you can arrange for that, then you can forget all the miseries, right? For now, anyway, right? It acts like a drug. Well, now I'm enjoying. I'm not going to think about old age, disease, and death. Exactly what you're supposed to think about from the Bhagavad Gita. The material mind, the modes of nature. But the modes of nature, which are under Krishna's control, they make you forget, right? Avatam ganametena jnanino natavaidana kamarupena kontera dushparena alenaja. That lust, mode of passion, covers the knowledge of the living entity. Never satisfied, burns like fire. So, therefore, these Yamadutas, they're laying out what they understand and how Dharma works. And indeed, it does, except for the fortunate soul who chants the holy name of the Lord. In other words, Krishna is always in the background, and he's provided this access to himself through chanting of his holy name, and everything else that we experience. But primarily, that's the means. And it's a means, as will be explained by the Vishnu Dutas, to negate all of this, no matter what you've done. And we have this example of a Jamil, and there's so many other examples, Jagai Madai, and ourselves, come from so many backgrounds. You don't even want to think about things that you do. Unthinkingly, this is the problem. Ignorance. That people are just shopping, going to, there's 4 major supermarkets within a mile or 2 here. Some places, I'm sure right in San Diego, they have what they call food deserts. The poorer areas, where you can't even go to buy fresh vegetables within, without getting in the car somewhere or getting, And so, therefore, they go to the 7-Eleven and get chips and things somehow to feed the belly, And you get very unhealthy. Hare Krishna. So, but here we have such an opulence because it's a wealthy area, So you can go to Ralph's. If you want to go, go natural, you go to Sprouts, and maybe Trader Joe's has stuff. Or you can go to Vaughn's. Think about it; they're right in a little circle. That's why I never put any mileage on my car, I just I go to Sprouts, go to Trader's, and come home. Sometimes I go to Ralph's just to get kale and organic blueberries, So, but most people, they go down there, and there's a lot. I didn't even know this, because I just go to the kale. But I had to use the restroom at the back of the store, and I walked down this aisle, and it's all liquor. The whole thing is this beer, and you never used to have that in a grocery store, They got a liquor license, you can come here. So if you go in there and you have, you're not schooled about what's proper to eat in terms of sin, not just in terms of health, then you go there and you're browsing around the meat section, and everything. You just pick that up, and the eggs, and there's some nice fish, I'm going to take it home. And when you cook it and eat it, you perform some huge sin. The Supersoul is watching, the sun is watching, and everything. And you don't even know it. You don't even know it. But meanwhile, the souls and the fish and the animals and the chickens, you just from the grievous sin, and you have to pay for it. So they're describing that program. And Prabhupada, he tells this account here. He gives a little summary of it. It was in this school. I remember him recounting this, and this teacher challenged that there's no super soul, or that there's no witness, and so how can there be a law of karma, you know? But then Prabhupada says, yes, there's the super soul. He wouldn't give all this other list here, but there's a super soul keeping account. You know, I remember when it came out, I don't know how long ago, what was that guy, Snowden, who was working for the NSA, you know, and he revealed that the government is keeping a track on your of all your calls and every, they're making a big file of that. So I remember reading an article. It was something that they came up with called the panopticon. Who do you need? Oh, so panopticon. This is some. I don't know. I think it was in some fantasy, but it's like they had a artist's rendering of this. There's a prison, and then there's some tower in the middle. And they're able to see into all the cells, so they keep an eye on you. In other words, they're keeping track of what you're doing even in the prison. But I was thinking that, well, we believe in the panopticon, but it's Vishnu, it's Krishna, it's the super soul who's watching at every moment. He says right in the Gita, Vedaham samatitani vartamanani charjana bhavashani chabhutani mam tu vedana kashana. I know everything in the past that's happened, everything that's happening right now, and I know everything that will happen in the future. But me, no one knows. Somehow or other, this has always been the most amazing power of Krishna that's for me to wrap my mind about. All the zillions of things that are happening right now, and the more zillions that happened in the past, because it's all in infinite time, and He knows every one of those. So why is it that we want to forget the super soul or deny His existence, right? Deny because we don't want to be watched. We want to be able to be free to do our sins in secret, so that no one will know. So, but devotees, we welcome the idea. We're actually trying to, we understand now there's imperfections, but we're getting the spiritual strength to give up the gross sins and the subtle sins and everything. So we should understand that, oh, okay, I'm being watched. In other words, Krishna is my witness, and He'll see when I do good things. And I'll get benefit. I'll get more taste for the holy name and things like that. But the only reason people don't deny the material mind is because they don't want to be seen doing their bad things, and they don't trust the government. They don't trust those that they actually have their best interests in mind. And most you got these despotic governments, And and like in China, there's a surveillance state. Everything. They're on your phones. They got the face recognition in the street. How can you? I mean, even if you're a very good person, you're not committing any horrible sins or crimes. You don't trust that this government really has your best interest in mind. Just like in Russia, the whole thing is falling apart. People don't. They're afraid of the government. They're trying to escape the country. It's a disaster. Anyway, this was always a fear when we were growing up. I remember, and I learned about the bomb, and they used to show pictures during the time they were testing the bombs in the atmosphere. They find. I'm living in New York. And everything, all the winds in America, in the northern hemisphere, they blow from west to east. There's a general tendency from west to east. So there in New York, they said, we got all this fallout now, strontium-90, because they're testing the bombs in Nevada, I think it was. They started there. So there was a movement, and then finally they stopped testing in the atmosphere, and they're now testing then they testing ground. Now they don't test at all. They're not supposed to test. But so I'm growing up with all of this, menace, even in the milk you drink, and all these different things. So this is the third line of the verse I quoted. Dukaushadam tadapi dukam. Is that the remedies, material remedies you try to bring to the troubles of the world just create more miseries. Duk aushadam means the aushad is a herbal remedy. May not be any remedy for the dukkha. How can we mitigate our pains? Oh, okay. We'll heat. You know, it's cold. It's freezing cold in the UK. In so many places in America. Well, we got the heating system now. We used to have have to burn the wood that created, losing the forests and all the smoke, and it's very difficult. But now we have these wonderful pipes. They put the gas in and every home can be heated. There's only one little problem. Greenhouse gases, right? Now they're heating the whole atmosphere up, and the weather is becoming crazy. The climate is changing, and the hurricanes are becoming more powerful. Forest fires, California. Well, every year the forest fires is huge. Forest. We had one here that someone mentioned about Majumdar getting out of his house. Was it you? And one.
Well, DJ told it was Maharaj's original story.
Yeah. Well, we heard about when it happened. I was in India. I was in Vrindavan when the wildfires, they call them fires, were burning in San Diego. I'm looking over the shoulder of someone who's got a newspaper from Delhi, and on the front page, big fires in San Diego, in India. That's how big it was. So I come back here, and it's not like Pacific Beach burned or anything, but the smoke came here. The winds, the what do they call them? The winds that blow. What is it? Santa Ana winds. They come from the east and blow west, which is unusual. And so I come to my apartment. There's soot inside, everywhere. My dear godbrother and roommate Gangeya Prabhu somehow thought with the smoke to get better air, you keep the windows open and get fresh air. So he let in a bunch of soot. We had to clean it up. But this is all caused by exploiting the oil, burning the gas. So the dukkha aushadam turns into a worse dukkha. And then there's 3 syllables that describe the origin of the whole problem. Atadhyaham. There's different ways of understanding this phrase. Prabhupada translated this way, and many other acharyas. And that is, atadhyaham, I'm thinking of something I'm not. In other words, if you're in the bodily concept of life, then you're not thinking of what's happening after death. You purposely don't believe in the law of karma, or even that there's any life after death, so you don't have to worry about it. So you just concentrate on this individual life, and you try to make it as comfortable and as much sense gratification as possible. And if you're really demonic in the modes of ignorance, then you'll try to just exploit others and not even have any kind of empathy or sympathy. This is what happens when that atheism takes over, and people deny that there's someone watching, that God is watching, and you have to pay, and you have to live according to moral laws in order. So that's what, and in Prabhupada's pastime here, he told the way he describes it now, that the Supersoul is always there, the witness, keeping track. He doesn't need anybody to write it down. He's got a perfect memory. He knows exactly what you're doing. But on the other hand, when you approach him, when you take up bhakti, then the Supersoul is also watching Krishna in the heart, and he responds in a wonderful, loving and liberating way. And that brings up this verse, Shinvatam Sakata Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtana Ridyantakso Yabadhani Vidunoti Suritsata. That when you are hearing purely, with great attention, devotion, Shinvatam, Krishna is inside as Supersoul, and he knows exactly what you're doing. He says, oh, he's listening to my katha from the right source, he wants to be purified. Vidunoti, he's cleansing away the heart. This is Chaito Darpana Marjanam, Lord Chaitanya's first lesson. Shunvatam Sakara Punya Shravana Kirtana, which gives you piety just by hearing it. This is how potent genuine Krishna Katha is. The whole movement is built on its sound. Vidyantaksto, situated in the heart, Yabadrani Vidunoti, he cleanses away the abhadras, which includes the anartas. Abhadras are all those things which are inauspicious in the heart: the lust, the anger, the greed, the illusion, the madness, the envy, all the grievances you hold, which just constricts your heart. All of that he can purify very quickly. And if we do it right and we're serious about it, then they get cleansed away to a certain degree, and then comes that verse that I always chant, which I didn't chant today because we started out with the other. Nashta prayasha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavajutta mashloke bhakti bhavati naistiki. that when Prabhupada would say maybe 70%, 65, 70%, prayeshu means not all, but most, And nashta means destroy. All these abundras that we mentioned here are destroyed. Nashta prayesha, but the nityam bhagavata sevaya. Now this nityam is so important. Bhagavata sevaya means serving the two Bhagavats. Who can say what they are? Yes, the book Bhagavat and the person Bhagavat. You serve the book Bhagavat by doing what we're doing. You hear from the Bhagavatam, you contemplate the message, you share it, you think about it. This is serving the book Bhagavatam, trying to lead your life according to Bhagavatam. But at the same time, there has to be a person who embodies the Bhagavatam and is giving you the instructions. So you establish a relation, Shiksha Guru, Diksha Guru, so that there's a perfect example, and also that you're willing to be corrected. That wonderful verse, which I always forget. Tato duksanga mutsrijya satsu sajjeta buddhiman santa eva sichindandi mano vyasaga muktabi. This is the 11th canto. This is another verse that Krishna is saying about why you have to approach and take shelter of a proper guru. It's right after the Ila Gita, which is Pururava's song of renunciation, after being in the clutches of Urvasi, for who knows how long, thousands of years, he's so attracted. Then he finally says, has the song of renunciation, no more, And so then Krishna speaks this verse. Therefore, Duk Sangha Mutsuja, one has to throw away, seriously separate oneself from bad association. So the Sangha Sanjayate Kama, your association produces your desires. That's in the Bhagavad Gita. So we know about the importance of associating with devotees, not associating with non-devotees. So Tato Duk Sangha Mutsraja Satsu Sajjeta Buddhiman. Be intelligent. The intelligent person associates with the Sat, with the devotees. Satsu Sajjeta Buddhiman. And then the most, the ideal devotee, the acharya, the guru, then what's the effect? Santa evasya chindandi manovyasagam uktabi. The Santa, the saint, the guru, with his words will cut off, or say, perform a surgical operation, on your brain, and so that all of your very, very powerfully impacted material desires, you're able to give them up. Mano vyasangam, vyasangam means very strongly attached, but by the powerful words of the Acharya and the Shastra, which are just the words of the Acharyas also, you can give up those desires. But what is the most important instruction? Along with your the instruction to give this up, they give you the means by which to become attached to Krishna, which makes it feasible. You can't just give it up. That the Mayavadis try to give up everything and become so austere, but it's impossible. What is that verse? Yen yeir vindaksha vimukta maninas trayashta bhavat abhishuddha buddhaya aruha kutrena padang padang tata patantya dhonadridayushmarangi. The demigods are praying to Krishna in the womb. And they're saying, besides the devotees, there are others. Ye anyeya, O lotus-eyed Lord, who think that they're liberated, but their intelligence is actually impure. They're impersonalists. They're trying to just go to the Brahman. Vimuktam aruha kutrena, by the very strong austerities. I always think, can you imagine trying to become detached from everything without the holy name, without the association, without the deities, the prasadam, all the things that attract us to Krishna, which make vairagya feasible. But just on the strength of your will, I won't think about that anymore. No, I won't let my senses just dictate that anymore. That's, you're out in the forest, you can't, there's no way of doing it in a city. So this is kutrena. The very word is onomatopoeia. You know what onomatopoeia? It sounds like what it means, but what it sounds. There's hundreds, splash, boom. These are all English words. And there's so many in the Sanskrit too. So this is one, kutrena. Just like the seed word for Lord Nrsingadev, there's a seed word for, like for Krishna, like clean, and Radharani shreem, and for Shringadev it's shraum. He's ripping apart Hiranyakashipu's body. It's nice to really study the meaning of the words we chant every day. Tava kala kamalavade nakam adbhuta shringam. What does adbhuta shringam mean? Did you ever, what? Wonderfully sharp. Wonderfully sharp. Adbhuta shringam. Shringam is sharp. He's got these. Just imagine those nails. Probably would say sharpened, as if but he meant sharp. He's sharpening them. Before. The Pralambasa has sharpened fangs. But he's ripping apart with just sharpened fangs. So this Kritrena means that severe austerities to try to get up to the Brahman. A few can get transcendental, by their own. But it's unnatural. What are you going to do up there? There's no Krishna. There's no holy name. There's no kirtan. There's no prasadam. No feast. There's no Jagannath. Rath Yatra. All there is you and pure consciousness, the white light. How long can you do that? So there's patantya though. They all come down. Probably they open hospitals or something. So the Yamadutas are describing what they understood of Dharma, and they've been carefully doing it for who knows how many years. Following this and going after the sinners and bringing them. But there's a part of the Dharma that they don't know, and that is the power of the holy name. Because ultimately Krishna, he wants all to come back to him, even the great sinners. And even the greatest sinners, he wants to give them a chance if they just chant his holy name. So he invests the holy name with his powers. Nam namakari bahulam nija sarva shaktis tatrapita. Nija sarva means that he's invested with all his powers. So if one chants without offense, not necessarily pure, but without offense, means that they don't have the mentality, now I heard that you can get rid of all the sins just by chanting. Oh, bye, I can just go free reign now, and then I'll just chant Hare Krishna. Once or twice I'll be free. That doesn't work. You're the worst sinner, and you're not going to be forgiven for that. What will happen is that eventually you'll give up the chanting. You won't even think about it anymore. You won't be able to. I mean, it's a blessing. Krishna gives you a blessing to be able to chant. So that will all become clear after they go through their whole explanation, which is on one level accurate, and but there's a clause, there's a special thing, and the Bhagavatam is all about that. Is that what do we find from one of my favorite verses? When you read it, you say, "Oh, it must be describing us." And, this is Devahuti and the Kapila Dev. Aho bata shapachoto gari and yajjigagve vartate nabatubhyam te pustapaste juhavusasnaraya brahmano chu namagunanti yete. How wonderful it is! How fortunate! Aho bata shapacho. Even those who are dog eaters, the most sinful of the sinful. But they're so fortunate and glorious if just on the tip of their tongue the holy name is vibrating. Now it's understood that they're not eating dogs here and then just chanting a little eating dog. No, they're chanting, even though they're born in the family of dog eaters, but they're not eating dogs anymore. They're chanting the holy name. And then in previous lives, they must have performed all sacrifices, studied the Vedas, visited all the holy places like that, to be in that. And they said, well, maybe that's me. I was eating worse than dogs. I was eating hamburgers. Isn't that worse? And yet he's chanting and definitely become a vegetarian and done all these things. So it's encouraging, and that's the special power of the holy name, especially in this age. It's an ocean of faults, but there's one very great factor in this age, especially. And just by Sankirtan, one can achieve all the results, become free of sin, become free of the material body, and go back home. So I've kind of gone over time. Any discussion on any of these points? Vaikuntha Prabhu.
Might be a little technical, but if I can get it out, like on the Nastapra issue, right? Almost to nil, like that understanding, and Prabhupada said, say 70%. So Like if we look at that in terms of the stages of devotion, is that like nishta or is that?
Yes, that's nishta.
Nishta.
That's nishta.
And so
Where
the
the
idea-
anartas are, largely gone, anarta nivritti, and then the nishta. And these things, they're not. I always. They're not mutually exclusive, because the next stage is ruchi.
Right.
But it's not that there's no ruchi in even in the earlier stages.
Sure.
The ruchi just increases. It just increases more, and then that matures into attraction, into bhava, into prema. But nishta, is the anartas are largely gone.
Is that like at a level where it starts to turn more from like Vaidhi to Raganuga? Or I'm just trying
Yeah,
to...
for
So
sure.
it kind of picks up this momentum, sort of.
Yeah, it's like it's almost like the evolution of what you see in the Shikshastika. First line, Cheto Darpanamarjanam, cleansing is taken. Bhava Mahadavagni Vapanam. And then the burning fire of suffering in material life is extinguished. In other words, you're getting liberation. It's very condensed, obviously. But the point is that he's not talking there about raga and ruchi and things like that. This is just the first line is what he's talking about here. But the Shreya Kaitava Chandrakava Vidyavadujim Anandamadu, the third line, already the ocean of bliss is coming. Because the thing is, this is cleansing. We already have the ocean, we already have the potential to enjoy spiritual pleasure. But it's been covered over for millions of years and inhibited. But if you take the process, it's so powerful. And there's so much mercy in the chanting, especially in this age, that you can quickly begin to taste some of the ananda. You get certain blips of ananda, and then because of conditioning, you may not feel it all the time. But that's an encouragement that it's out there. And if we keep doing it and keep purifying, we can eventually come to the point of sthai bhava. Sthai bhava means you're always in bhava. Can you imagine? So that's what, and it's evolving from I don't have to worry about the Yamadutas, and I can even get liberation from birth, old age, disease, and death. Yeah, let me chant. But as time goes on, you forget about that, right? Birth after birth, as long as I can relish the nectar of serving your lotus feet and be in the house of a devotee.
Thank you.
That's our evolution. Yeah. Okay. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Haribol.